Could it be Halloween coming up this week? This is the dog, H. Weber, with you on a Monday, another Monday show, October the 28th, 2013. And where has the year gone? Just a couple of days from now, we'll be talking about only 2 months left in 2013. Good morning, everybody. It's H. Weber with you with another edition of Weber This Week. As always, we try to bring in guests that have been friends of mine, or maybe not friends, but acquaintances for a long time. This guy's been a friend of mine for way back when. I bring back Mike Cutillo, my good friend, executive editor of the Finger Lakes Times. He's carved out some valuable minutes to be with us this morning. Mike, first off, thanks for joining us, and it's good to have you back.
It's great to be here, Harold. Thank you very much.
I know the timing of this appearance doesn't work very well for you getting a newspaper out today. So if people don't get a paper, they can blame it on me.
Yeah, well, we'll get it out. It might be a little bit late. We'll get it out. And actually, it's not so bad for me to be out of the office. It's for the guys that are back at the office that are right on deadline. This is crunch time right now.
Oh, I bet it is. Well, Mike, we're going to go over a zillion topics. There's a lot to talk about. Of course, Mike is the executive editor of the Finger Lakes Times. And for the folks that may not know you or know about you that may be tuning into the show, Mike, I remember meeting you way back when you were on the sports trail. Tell us a bit about your background, when you came to Geneva, how you got involved in Finger Lakes Times.
Okay. Well, actually, Harold, it was 1984 when I started at the Finger Lakes Times, and that's when I was a sports writer. So we're talking this January will be 30 years.
Wow.
Now, I haven't been at the Times that entire time. I spent 5 years in Canandaigua as their sports editor. Mm-hmm. But for 25 of those 30 years, I've been at the Finger Lakes Times. I was a sports writer for probably 5 or 6 years under Norm Jallo, who I know you knew.
Very well.
And then I became the sports editor. I was sports editor for 5 or 6 years, moved up to the position of a news editor. Then I went to Canandaigua, and I was sports editor there for 5 years, and have been back at the Finger Lakes Times for 4 or 5 years now, executive editor for about 3. So that's a nutshell right there.
That's a nutshell. And we should point out, Mike Cutillo, our guest this morning on Weber This Week. Hope you're having a good Monday a.m. wherever you may be checking us out. Mike, your newspaper has a headline at the top of every newspaper now. AP Distinction newspaper. Give me the right saying, because I screwed it up, I think.
An AP newspaper of distinction.
Of distinction.
Yeah.
And you've received that award for the last 2 years. I guess the point is you didn't get it 3 years ago. So the question, I guess, before we get to the world of sports, you guys are obviously doing a lot of things right with your reporting and writing and just the way you handle the newspaper to be considered for such a nice award.
Well, we didn't get it 3 years ago, and we actually didn't get it for the first 116 years that we were in existence. So for the last 2, we've been fortunate enough to get it. You know, awards are kind of a funny thing. You guys probably know the same thing. You're not in this business to win awards, but when you do, it just kind of justifies everything that you do, and you feel good about it. So for 2 years in a row, as I say, we've been fortunate enough to win it, and we've won it in our classification of circulation, which is we're 15,000. I think our class is 20 to 25,000 or lower, and that classification actually has the most newspapers in New York State. There's about 25 or so other newspapers. So the larger classes, where the New York Times are and the Wall Street Journal and things like that, they have their newspapers of distinction as well, but there's not as much competition. We have a ton of competition and a lot of great papers our size. So, yeah, you know, we like to think we're doing some things well. When we don't do things well, we hear about it from people within seconds, usually, phone calls and emails. And so once a year when we win an award like this, it's really, it just feels great, and everybody's on cloud 9 right now. Paul
Baird is his name, the publisher of the Times. I'm sure him and his team, are led by you, obviously, and many other people. It must make the people feel good that the teamwork aspect obviously is paramount at the Times.
Paul Baird is all about teamwork, and really he's built a terrific team. That's one of the reasons I can be here today, is because I don't have to worry about the guys back at the shop. They everybody is top notch, and we're really fortunate, being a small paper, that we have such an experienced staff. People stay around at our paper for a while, which a lot of smaller papers, it's come and go, and you're moving up the ladder and whatever. Our folks have stayed, and Paul's built a great team. He's a huge sports fan. He played college football down in Arkansas, and he's all about teamwork, and he knows that deal. Puts people in the right spots and lets them do their thing. And when we need something, we go to him. Otherwise, we're on our own.
That's good. That's a good manager.
Absolutely.
Listen, let's talk a little about the world of sports. We've got a lot of topics to run over. First off, I would be remiss if we didn't talk about the Cardinals, the Red Sox World Series. Couple of nice nights of temperatures in St. Louis, 58, 52. That's pretty nice. They might have some difficulty when they go back to Boston in a couple of days. What's your take so far? 2-2. You tell me that Paul's a big Cardinal fan, Alan Brignall, a big Red Sox fan. They got to be having a little fun with their action, but certainly it's the series I think most people thought we would have, even though I was kind of hoping the Dodgers might get in. But your thoughts early on about the series?
Well, I was kind of hoping the Pirates would get in.
Yeah, right.
So
exactly.
St. Louis, I've always been a National League fan. I'm a longtime Pirates fan, so I kind of squeeze the National League a little bit. Maybe more of a traditionalist. I'm not big on the DH and that kind of thing. So I guess I lean Cardinals, and it's not because the guy who pays my salary leans Cardinals as well. Alan just takes me out for beers every once in a while. So,
yeah, that's right.
But, I think everybody before the series started said it was going to be a 6 or 7 game thing, and it's going to at least be 6, and I think 7. Evenly matched teams. I love them both. They're gritty. The Red Sox are gritty, especially with these beards. They look like they came out of the 1800s.
Yeah, that's right.
The Cardinals, unfortunately for the Pirates, who are building a nice little foundation for themselves. The Cardinals are going to be good for the next 5 or 6 years as well.
Amazing.
They're all young. I was just reading something in Sports Illustrated about their 2009 draft, and they say it was in the 99th percentile of drafts over the last 20 years.
It's amazing.
They've got 5 guys from that draft on this roster right now. So they're going to be around for a while. The Red Sox, obviously, bouncing back from last year's down year.
From worst to first.
Story. Yeah, great story.
And speaking of the Pirates, I know I've needled you over the years about the Pirates. I take my shots via phone calls or emails to you. But 21 years with a losing record, amazing. Not only did they turn that around, they made the playoffs. Obviously, they got knocked off in the first round, but still, you had to be proud of them.
Oh, it was a fantastic year. I mean, I don't think people realize the last 2 years they were in the running around the All-Star break, if first place or close to first place for the last 2 years. They just didn't have the staying power. This year, I thought that they did have the staying power. They've got some good young pitching. Unlike past years when they kind of sold the shop towards the end of every season, the last couple of years they've been keeping guys together, and it was a great season. They got beat by a really good team. The Game 4 was the one that sticks in my mind. That Game 4 of their series, that was the game they needed to. They had to finish the Cardinals off because they were not going to beat Wainwright in St. Louis in Game 5. There was no way. But now, this year I wasn't expecting all that much. I mean, I thought that they would be better. Now going into next season, I'm going to be expecting a lot because I really love that team. I love Clint Hurdle, and it's been fun. But yeah, it's been a long dry spell.
Hey, Mike, do you think that Pittsburgh is going to now unload some of these guys like they did with Jason Bay, and you think they're going to stick with these guys for a while?
No.
Maybe pay a few?
I do not think that they're going to get rid of some of these guys. They would have had a fire sale late in the season like they had been doing all those years if they were going to. I think they're going to keep these guys around. And one thing people don't realize is the Pirates made money for a lot of those years, even though their attendance was bad.
Yeah.
I mean, they had their ownership had cut to a bottom line, and they were making money. They
were getting their revenue sharing.
Exactly. Too. They just weren't reinvesting it back into the team. Now with current ownership, they're spending a little bit of money, and I think they've signed McCutchen to a longer-term deal. They're going to keep some of these guys around, and I think that's the exciting thing if you're a Pirate fan. I back in the '90s, Harold, when they were the last time that they were good, I mailed World Series tickets back 2 years in a row.
Really?
I wasn't like being cocky saying, "Oh, the Pirates are going to be in the World Series," but they had a lottery for tickets, and I have cousins who live down in the Pittsburgh area. That's why I became a Pirate fan. And my cousin said, "Hey, you got to get your name in the lottery right now if you want to try to get tickets." It was towards the end of the regular season. Well, both years, 91 and 92, I got lucky enough to get tickets.
Oh, my God.
They mailed me tickets for Pittsburgh Pirate World Series games. So both of those years, they get beat in the NLCS, and I had to mail those tickets back. I said with a tear on them both times. But that was the only way I could get my money back was to mail the tickets back. And I was thinking, should I save these as a keepsake maybe? But then you're like, but it wasn't. They didn't even play the game, so what kind of keepsake is it? So.
Well, Mike Cutillo is our guest this morning on Weber This Week. And, of course, Mike, there's a lot of other topics to go by. Of course, you probably picked up a gentleman named Octavius McCoy ran for 455 yards to set an NCAA record for all divisions in Division III. Western Connecticut State's 55-35 victory over Worcester State on Saturday, 455 yards.
I tell you, I can't even walk 455 yards. I get tired walking around the block. That
amazing.
It is. It's incredible, and you get some of those numbers like that sometimes at the Division III level. But a crazy.
Speaking
game.
of records, let's talk about Calvin Johnson of the Detroit Lions. Megathon, What, 12 catches, 329?
I think 14
14
catches.
for 329?
With only one touchdown in there, though. We were joking this morning. It wasn't a great fantasy day.
Yep.
For a 300-yard game, in our league at least,
Yep.
touchdowns mean more. And Alan was joking this morning, saying he didn't really score that much for a guy with a 300-yard receiving day.
Would have rather had Marvin Jones from Cincinnati.
Exactly, 4 touchdowns.
And the record is a guy named Flipper Anderson.
I remember that game when he played for it was the Rams.
Rams,
right?
yeah.
LA
Flipper
Rams.
Anderson.
Yeah.
Pretty scary stuff.
Yep.
Well, I got to get your take on a rule that I think is dumb, but I think I've messed this with many people. In college football, as you know, Mike, Mike Cutillo is our guest this morning on Weber This Week. A lot of concern about head injuries, et cetera, certainly, and not tackling above the shoulder pads. I understand all those issues, the concussions. We all know about the NFL. They've swept that under the rug for many years. Now it's coming to light. Even Brett Favre can't remember his daughter's birthday. But regarding a call that still blows my mind, it happened again just last weekend. A receiver goes out for a pass, and you go in to tackle him, and you apparently take a shot above the head. Flag comes out. The referees assemble. They toss you out of the game, and then they go upstairs to the review booth because there's somebody who has higher authorities than the official. I am the review guy, and I look at the film and say, no, it was not a shot. You therefore call up and say, well, Mike Cutillo has not been tossed out of the game. He can come back in, but the 15 yards gets marched off. What part of that don't I understand? That is the dumbest rule in the world of football. I don't know if they say you didn't do it intentionally with intent to hurt, or malice, and they say, okay, you can go back in the game. They don't pick the flag up, the 15 yards. I don't understand that.
It's a crazy rule.
I don't understand that rule.
It's a crazy rule. I think, to tell you the truth right now, they're having some problems with trying to figure that whole thing out. I just went to a seminar last week that our friend Ray Cingolini put on at the Bellhurst in Geneva.
Right.
And he's done unbelievable work with the Second Impact Foundation. Right. Working with concussions and talking about mostly sports-related concussions. Obviously, Ray had some over the years in his boxing career that didn't get diagnosed. And I think with issues like that and with foundations like Ray's, it's shedding light on this concussion issue. Obviously, when you talk about a Brett Favre or Jim McMahon these days, who doesn't even know his address of his home, and was such a vivacious, outgoing guy back in his day. There's just some conflicts, I think, with the concussion thing right now. How far do you go? I mean, football is always going to be a collision sport. And you take that away, it's not the same game. But you've got to protect the players, and I just think that's so. These things will be ironed out. I think. Long answer, but that's what I'm thinking.
I mean, last weekend, Mike, it was like a contest of how many ACLs we could have ripped out and MCLs in the NFL. Yeah, it was like 3 or 4 of them. One day's play.
Right, you get spurts like that, and it'll seem like it's a bunch of running backs or a bunch of receivers one day. Yeah, the NFL, to me, the teams that win anymore in the NFL are those that stay healthy and are still healthy by the end of the season. Their key players are healthy. Those are the teams that win the Super Bowl anymore.
Well, a shocking loss by, how about them Cowboys yesterday when you thought they had it in the bag, and I watched the last of it. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. And they let this Calvin Johnson keep catching balls down the middle. Who's watching them? Well, somebody wasn't watching them because you never thought, you had a wildest dreams that the Cowboys could find a way to lose that game when it appeared they had it in hand. We'll talk to Mike about the NFL results yesterday, get his pick, and talk a little bit about Hobart football. Speaking of a dynamite program up there. But first, let's hear from the great people that make this show possible, our great sponsors here on Weber This Week. Hugo Lake National Bank, Bill Ryan and his team for all of your banking needs. Offices in Union Springs and Aurora. A fine sponsor of this show for over 30 years. DA Liquors, Seneca Falls. Amy Padula and her great team will find that right spirit for you every time. Tell Amy the dog sent you. Steve Wadhams, Wadhams Enterprises, your employer of choice. Proud supporter of this show and local athletics. Steve Muller Motors, smullermotors.com. Quality, affordable vehicles, both foreign and domestic. Bob and Leslie Oman, owners of the Oman Theater in Lyons, as well as the Newark Pilots, a minor league baseball team with a major league ballpark. Lizard's Tailgater Lounge, Waterloo. Best mott sticks around, where you can enjoy a drink and some laughs. SenecaFallsCountryClub.com. awesome 18-hole layout, offering a 12-month payment plan. Home of the toughest par 4 in central New York. That'd be number 16. Marshall Auto Sales. DickMarshallsAuto.com. Awesome used vehicles, where you not only can buy a great vehicle, you can gain a great friend in Dick Marshall. Wilson Press. WPress.com. Seneca Falls. Rich Ricky, my good friend, and his team can handle all of your printing and mailing needs. Rich Ricky, Wilson Press, a fine sponsor of Weber This Week. Welcome back, everybody, to Weber This Week on a Monday, October 28th. Hope you're getting all psyched for Halloween, and it's hard to believe we're almost on countdown with a couple of months to go in the year, Mike, and I don't know about you, but as I get older, and I'm older than you are by, I think I got socks older than you are, but, you know, in all honesty, it's hard to believe we're almost knocking down 2014. Scary.
Gosh. The Super Bowl will be here before you know it.
I know. All right, Mike, let's get your take on Hobart. Mike Craig, you think of Hobart William Smith when I first came into the area and started following the world of sports, not certainly bad-mouthing their sports programs, but I always thought them as a heck of an academic institution. And I never really took part in being a great football follower of their program. But I got to tell you, they have really turned that around the last several years, and Mike Craig is certainly responsible for putting that team together. Outstanding job.
He's done a great job, and I know he'll give credit to some of his predecessors, Bill Maxwell and some people like that, the late Bill Maxwell. Mm-hmm. Mike is just a great coach. I don't think he's had a losing record in his 9 or 10 seasons. They're getting to a level where they've never been before. Obviously, ranked 5th or 6th in the country right now. Got to the NCAA Division III quarterfinals last year. Got beat up pretty good in that game, but even Mike himself said, you know, we just are not at that level. You start talking about the Mount Unions and the Wisconsin Whitewater and those teams that are there every year,
right?
And they're borderline Division I. They get borderline Division I players, probably not even borderline guys that could play Division I. So, you know, Hobart's got some building to do to get to that level, but
sure.
It's a fantastic run that they've had. Undefeated last year up until the last game, and 6-0 or 7-0 this year. I don't think they've scored less than 30 points in a game, and just a real good, solid program right now.
An outstanding running back from Dundee.
Yeah, Stephen Webb, just doing a great job. He gets 100 yards every game, it seems like. But I think they mark him down for 100 before they even start the game. Just in great balance. This past weekend, I think their quarterback Conlon there threw 3 touchdown passes, so really good balance. Mike's always been a defensive coach, so you know the defense is solid. Now they're just scoring points like crazy, too. It's really been a metamorphosis. And, yeah, like you say, Harold, too, back in the day you thought of it as an academic institution with lacrosse. They play a little lacrosse on the side. Now lacrosse is like taking a back seat, even though it's a Division I program. But some of their other sports, and hockey is great these days. Soccer team's been good at times. The basketball team's really good with Mike Neer as the coach. Just solid programs, and also William Smith as well. They've always been good in most of their sports. So
they have.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at the NFL and run down some teams. Certainly when Chip Kelly got hired by the Philadelphia Eagles, Mike, he came from the run-and-gun Oregon Ducks. And, of course, in game number 1 this year, in his first game as a coach, they just mashed and slashed the Redskins, running, I think, for a zillion yards. And everybody kept saying, oh, my, they're not going to figure out Chip Kelly's offense.
Yeah.
And it only took them, what, a week? Now, what can the Eagles score about? Average 6 points or 8 points a game? And they're totally in disarray. And the defensive coordinators have figured out the Eagles' offense, what offense there is when Vic plays. And with a hamstring issue, he wasn't around yesterday for long. Kind of funny how the NFL can quickly zero in on you.
Yeah, it's not college anymore.
Nope.
You know, and it's a little different story. And Kelly's Oregon team is still scoring about 150 points a game.
That's right.
It seems like with that high-speed offense that they have. I think that first game they ran like 80 plays or something in Philadelphia.
Amazing.
It was crazy. But you just knew that these NFL coaches would catch up with that in a hurry. And also for that kind of offense, you just need everybody to be clicking, everybody to be on the same page, and that's just so hard to do, especially when it's a team that he inherited.
Exactly.
It's not a team that he's built.
Exactly.
So I'll give him a little bit of time yet. But I mean, it's a good thing for the Giants, I guess, and fans around here.
Hey, Tommy Cochran,
they're hanging in there.
2-0 on a 2-game winning streak.
2 games back of first.
That's right.
They're 2 games out.
And now they got the bye week coming up. So, hey, you know better than anybody, and Jim certainly knows, and I know there's nothing better than being a Giant fan, but the media can be brutal and the fans can be brutal
They
when
can.
things aren't going well.
Yeah, they can. But Tom Coughlin,
Yep.
can deal with that,
Yep.
if anybody can. And they've been asking for his head during seasons when he's won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I know.
So who knows what how
And,
he'll
and
get
of
things
course,
turned around.
across town, we have Rex Ryan, the clown of the Barnum and Bailey Circus, who huffs and puffs and says he's going to be competitive. And yesterday was flat out embarrassing as Cincinnati just destroyed him.
Yeah, that was
Literally
that was
destroyed
crazy.
him.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, I like Rex actually. He says things. So many
Yep.
coaches are vanilla
Yep.
in their quotes, and
Yep.
they say what you think they're going to say, or what they think they want you to hear. Rex just says what's on his mind, and so I give him some credit for
Yeah.
that. Sometimes he has to stick his foot in his mouth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they're coming off a big win over the Patriots, and then they throw that thing out there yesterday. So you just never.
And the Patriots in Miami come flashing back with Brady and with the Croc is back. And, they got a 17-3 lead Miami at half, and all of a sudden they score 24 unanswered.
Yeah, exactly. That's another one. Alan Brignall's favorite team is the Dolphins in the NFL, and I was saying this morning, I thought they had that game not in hand because it was the first half, but they were playing well and seemed like they were in control. But they gave the Patriots just a little break just
Yep.
before halftime, and
Boom.
bye-bye.
Well, I think the AFC East and the NFC East in football are both, way down. So I was thinking with Marone coming to Buffalo that he might be able to do something immediately.
Yeah.
And I still haven't figured out the Patriots. They started out the year, they think
Yeah.
they're just as good as ever, but that whole division's crazy. And
It
same
is.
thing with the whole AFC and NFC East
Yeah, I agree.
this year.
Well, the jury's still out on the Bills. As you know, I've never been a Bills fan, and certainly I don't prescribe to be one right now. They had a big win, obviously, a week ago on the road against Miami. And then, of course, the Saints, they toyed with them a little bit, and it was somewhat competitive early on. But Breeze got that team rolling, and good night, good morning, good afternoon, see you later.
Yeah.
And certainly I don't think anybody expected the Bills to win at New Orleans. Big game coming up this week. Kansas City undefeated. I love Kansas City's story. I love Andy Reid. I've always been a big Andy Reid fan. I felt bad about his son, took his life, and he just strikes me as a dedicated employee. He gave his heart and soul to the Eagle organization. It was time to go by, say goodbye. But you know what? For him to end up in Kansas City, and again, Mike, Kansas City to me before Andy Reid got there was known for steaks. And guess what? He's turned that program around. Yeah, 8-0. I understand they're probably not going to win the Super Bowl, but you know what? It's great to see a guy get rewarded. He's got a nice team there.
And that's a football mad city too.
They got a great team.
So the best team since Hank Stram was coaching.
Oh,
that
I
thing.
remember those days. I love the uniforms.
Me too.
I do
Yeah,
too.
exactly. But I just think that it kind of goes to show you how much difference a coach can make
Oh, I
in
agree.
the NFL.
I agree.
And Andy Reid, things had just kind of gotten to a point in Philadelphia where, I don't want to say he wore out his welcome. He certainly didn't. But things just weren't working any longer, and it's time for a change, and that happens. And that's the same thing, with Doug Marrone in Buffalo. Now I know you're not a huge Doug Marrone fan.
No, I know.
Especially when he was in Syracuse.
Right.
But I always felt that, and I didn't know until he did take this New Orleans job or this Buffalo job that's what he aspired to was the NFL. I thought he was going to be at Syracuse for a while, but his demeanor and the way he coaches, it wasn't the rah-rah college type. I thought it lent itself more to the NFL, the professionalism. And I would say that the Bills have been competitive. They've been, they've had so many problems at quarterback and everything else this year that at least they hang in there. And, the NFL is not about moral victories or anything like that. Not at all.
Just win,
You've
baby.
gotta
Al
win.
Davis.
You've got to win.
Just win, baby.
Right? But, I think Doug Marrone is going to get them on at least some solid footing. They need a couple of good drafts, and we'll see what happens. But coaching makes a difference.
It's interesting you say that because I always in the back of my mind have the Bills because I pick on the people coming on the thruway since I work out there, and I always have the two numbers in mind, 13 and 8, 13 years without a playoff, 8 years in a row with a losing record. And I'm thinking maybe in a couple of weeks on this show I'll be flipping the chart to 14 and 9.
14 and 9.
Because, I'm going, oh, yeah, we got a new look, and I'm just thinking, I guess I've always liked to pick on them. And I do remember the years when they had 4 straight Super Bowls, finishing second. Unfortunately, the world of sports doesn't remember that.
I just wonder if Ralph Wilson sold his soul to the devil or somebody to go to those 4 Super Bowls.
my
I mean, what
Lord.
did he do or what did he have to do to get? I mean, and
amazing.
those teams were great. They were great. But boy, they are really paying the price, I guess, for that success.
You like Denver? You think they're a Super Bowl team?
I like them. I mean, obviously with Manning and everything, throwing about 14 touchdown passes a game. Their defense, there's something about it. I mean, they give up a lot of points. I know they hit hard. They have a hard-hitting secondary. That's what they always say. But I'm not crazy about them because I think at some point you've got to stop somebody. And I just haven't seen that from them. I think they're going to win a lot of games, but they're going to get into the playoffs like they they did last year and just not be able to stop somebody. And
A little surprised that Pittsburgh under Tomlin won a couple, then go out to Oakland, my team, the Raiders, and the Raiders win.
Yeah.
Led by Pryor, and pretty scary. The Raiders beat the Steelers when you thought the Steelers could finally get something going.
Yeah, and it's really funny talking about Pryor. He's from Jeannette, Pennsylvania, which is where my relatives live, and it's the reason why I'm a Pirate fan.
Wow.
It's about 20 miles outside of Pittsburgh. And I remember my cousin called me up when he was a sophomore in high school at Jeannette, and he said, "You have got to come down and watch this kid play, this Terrell Pryor. He's a man among boys." And you know how they take their high school football in Western
very
PA.
serious.
So I did go down with my dad, and we went to visit the relatives and went to a Friday night game at Jeannette. And that kid was he was a sophomore. I mean, and then he grew into it even more. And then he had, went to Ohio State and had a decent career, but had some problems there at the end. So that play last night reminded me of when I saw him, and he was running against high school kids 93 yards untouched down the field. So
it's going to be interesting. And of course, as the seasons go on, and of course, Dallas. I talked about Dallas. No way they lose that game. They found a way to lose it. That old prevent defense, Mike, comes back to haunt you.
Yeah, exactly. And again, the Calvin Johnson was man-to-man coverage on the play just before the touchdown to win the game. I mean, you got to triple team that guy.
I mean, it's just amazing. No. I don't think Jerry Jones had a very good flight on his personal jet flying home to Dallas, but it'll be interesting to see what happens in the world of the NFL as it evolves, and certainly. It's amazing. It's like a Grey's Anatomy at the end of each of these games, though. The injured reserve list, the injured list, the people getting carried off.
Right.
But
as I say, the healthiest teams win down the stretch in the NFL these days.
And I would be remiss if I didn't take a shot at my good friend Gordy Heinzman. I hope you're not checking me out today, Gordy, because we were talking about you before we went on the air. Your VTech team, I know you're not in good spirits this morning, but, the reason I do this show is to pick on my friends. And I know you're probably I wonder if Duke, though, won the other day. Were they coached by Krzyzewski? Oh, no, they weren't. Okay, I thought that was the basketball team that beat VTech. You're telling me that Duke went into VTech and beat VTech at VTech? Impossible. That, to me, at 16.5 years old, has to be one of the biggest upsets in college football for the last several years. Not the only one, but it's got to be one of the top 5 or 10. Are you serious? Duke goes to VTech and beats them in football? I hope you're not checking out the show, and if you did, you probably threw the computer across the room.
The ACC
conference
is a terrible football conference. I said it before we came in, and to be honest with you, wasn't ever too impressed with the basketball conference either. Now that Syracuse and Pittsburgh and Notre Dame and Louisville, it's going to be a great basketball conference. It'll be an improved football conference too, but just look at the history of the last 10 years in the ACC. It's been terrible. And now a team like Duke can go into Virginia Tech and beat Virginia Tech, who's supposed to be one of the premier powerhouses of the league, and and Clemson just gets rolled by Florida State, and so now the question is, how good is Florida State? Well, are they good enough to?
They look pretty good.
That game to me was one of the weirdest games of the season, Jim. That Clemson Florida, because I love Clemson. I thought that was a really good team.
My buddy Sam Cosentino,
a buddy of mine in Geneva, Sammy
lives
Cos.
and dies.
Yeah. And I think they're really good, and Florida State just annihilated them. Syracuse has to play them later in the year. The spread might be 100.
I said,
I don't know.
Don't go. Don't make the trip.
No.
Goodbye.
It's not worth it.
Save the mileage.
Right.
But you're right. It's weird. Everything goes sort out. They say that the BCS now has moved Oregon ahead of Florida State. So right now, and of course, Oregon would have the advantage because they play tougher teams down the stretch.
Yeah.
So it could be Alabama, Oregon. But I look at Alabama, and I know people say they don't play anybody, and I get that. But my God, I look at them, Mike, and they're just like a pro team out there. They seem to, the offense isn't doing well, the defense shuts you down. If the defense is sloppy, the offense will score 50. It's weird. It's just a weird team.
First of all, it's the SEC, so you can't say that they don't play anybody because that's the best conference in football.
Yeah.
And second of all, it is like an NFL team. I think they would beat Jacksonville pretty handily.
Yeah. Or Tampa, too.
Or Tampa.
And by the way, Mike, let's get your opinion on that. How about the state of Florida, the NFL? Have you ever seen two teams in one state be the worst of all? Tampa and Jacksonville with a 0-15.
That's a really good question. No, I can't recall anything like that.
Amazing.
There may have been a day, but no. Especially with all the football talent in Florida.
Question is, how long will Shiano be there? Hope he didn't buy a house.
Yeah, not long.
And the Jacksonville coach escapes me. What's his name? I can't remember it. Whatever. It's not really an issue.
It's not Coughlin anymore, is it?
No. But,
he led to a Super Bowl.
Tough going.
Right.
Speaking of football, let's run down some sectionals, Jimmy. I know that I've been watching Geneva. My granddaughter's a cheerleader up there, and we've been checking them out. But I understand, according to the paper so far, and of course that's Mike's paper, Geneva now in Newark goes against Newark either Friday or Saturday. I don't know if they've determined the time yet. It should be in a day or so.
Yeah, I had not heard yet either. Yeah, but that'll be a fun game.
That'll be a fun game.
Oh, it's going to be a great game.
Yep.
And, of course, the likes of Red Jacket, who's always a tough team, Class DD, they're going to play Sunday, November 3rd against Cal Mum. And our buddies from Clyde Savannah, Mike, as the beat goes on, way back when you and me used to see each other, Clyde Savannah was a powerhouse. They still can play. They take on the likes of Alexander. And that, of course, will be next
What class
Sunday.
is Clyde in this year?
Class D.
Yeah, D.
D.
And this is the championship game.
Yep.
Geneva's at the semifinal level,
right.
I think,
exactly.
and the championship game for some of the smaller classes.
So if Red Jacket and Clyde win, do they rematch in a Class D final?
I'm not sure how that all
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure myself.
Because they did last year.
Yeah, they did.
And Red Jacket beat them. Then
Right.
Clyde beat them in the regular season. That's just becoming a bit of a rivalry. Red Jacket football has been great the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Clyde's resurgence a little bit, and Geneva's been outstanding. And without, they lost Shane Sweeney.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Josh Jackson, the running back, is tough to stop.
Yeah, and actually he didn't even play this last week because I think he was hurt, and they stuck a freshman in there who ran for 150 yards or something like that. Geneva's Mike Payne's got a nice little program going there. He and all his assistant coaches do a really good job. But they got beat by Newark earlier this year. This is a rematch.
That's a rematch.
That's true.
And it's not going to be an easy game. That's for sure.
Micah Wright for Newark may be the most talented player in the region. Not only football, he's a great basketball player too.
Exactly.
But he's and Phil Tack is the senior quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really interesting. The football this season's been a little more interesting than past seasons, I think.
Yeah, well, Jim, let's talk about, if I may, let's talk a little bit about, before we get out of here, we're running past our 10 o'clock hour, but we got a couple minutes. Let's talk about our plans in covering some basketball action on FingerLakes1.com.
Yeah, we're 13 games this year, I think, live webcasts, starting with Minders at Clyde on November 30th, which is a Saturday. So you're going to get back behind the mic and call a couple.
I'm looking forward to it. I was off last year. I was telling Mike a couple years ago I started doing a few of the games, and I kind of had the missed fever of it to get back on it. And it's like riding a bike. Once you ride it, you probably should never forget. So it'll come back to me. But
Dave Barnick, Kevin Korzaneski, Brendan Harrington, Matt Verkey. So that's the first game.
Yep.
The last game is the Waterloo girls hosting the Newark girls on like February 12th. Yep. So in between, there'll be 13 games, including a back-to-back at Minders between Christmas and New Year's. They play Clyde on the 27th, and then they host Lions on the 28th. So for Lions, Clyde, Minders hasn't played for years. And then last year they all played in the postseason, and now this year they're playing in the regular season. I think that's great. I think we should put Minders, Waterloo, Clyde, Lions, Newark. They should all play each other.
So just to point out, FingerLakes1.com will be doing a 13-game schedule. And you never know what our plans are, but we'll let you know as soon as you get to the website. Jimmy will be updating it as weeks go on. Check us out. We got a good team of people to do the games, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. And the beauty of broadcasting these games is not only do you hear the volume, you get a chance to see how ugly we are. So
one last point on that I got to mention. This year you can watch it live on your smartphones.
So you can watch the games live on your smartphone.
Literally, you could be at the game.
There you go.
And pull it up on your phone, and there's a little bit of a delay, but for the first time, the technology is advanced where we can offer that on your smartphones, and I think that, especially with the younger kids, will increase viewership quite a bit.
Well, before we go off, Mike, there's just one other comment I had to make, get your opinion on. Of course, Mark Emmerick, the NCAA president, talks about academics, kids going to class, and I couldn't help but notice, Mike, that a few weeks ago ESPN signed a deal with NCAA to do more college football games during the week. Is that like tongue-in-cheek? Is that like you're going to be on an airplane flying to North Dakota on Tuesday and Wednesday? I couldn't help but notice they went for the cash again.
Well, see, in that case, you're talking about kids going to class. They'll play the game on a Tuesday, and then they'll go to classes on Saturday and Sunday.
That's amazing.
Right.
It's amazing. Unbelievable. I'm not a big fan of that guy. I really am. I've been kind of, with the way he handled Penn State. Miami just touched on the hand for their infractions.
Right.
I've never been a fan of Mark Emmerick, but I can't crack up, students should be studying. That's the first and fourth. Yeah, right. ESPN came with an open checkbook. And
Tuesday night football.
What night you want? Can't do Monday. Tuesday we can do it. Wednesday, Jim, too. Wednesday's available.
Yep.
Unbelievable. I love the NCAA. It's all about the almighty buck. Well, Mike, thanks a lot for carving out some time with us this morning, and hope to have you back, and maybe have you and Alan come back as a tandem next time.
Love to be back, Harold. Enjoy it very much. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Mike Cutillo, executive editor of the Finger Lakes Times, longtime buddy of mine. It's always great to have him come down and be a part of the show. Next week, by the way, promoting guests, we're going to stay in the city of Geneva. We're going to bring in, down from Geneva, Janelle Drock, who is the director of the Recreation Complex, and Mike and me were talking about her operation before the show. She has got a monumental task of running that operation, and she's involved in much more off-campus via that rec as well. So Janelle Drock will be our special guest for the full half hour next week here on Weber This Week. She will be on the couch. Take care, everybody. Thanks to my great sponsors. Thanks to Mike Cutillo. You have a wonderful week, and happy Halloween. We'll catch you next week.